Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. I'm here with $25 Patreon supporter Mitch Heldt, who is people loved what you had to say last time about manufacturing and the environment, and you have some interesting stuff that you sent me some articles to go over about what you wanted to talk today on solar roadways. So why don't you give everybody kind of first just an overview of what they are, and then we can go into whether or not we think they're realistic or sustainable.
Okay, solar roadways started in the Netherlands, where they had the idea to, in a large area that was really packed, and they saw no place to put the solar panels except on the sidewalks and in parking lots. And then a firm in the United States did a Kickstarter and started their own company that tried to do the same thing, and announced that they were building a factory in Sandpoint, Idaho, and produced a section of what would be the roadway about the size, go underneath a pickup truck, and they were going to use it as a demonstration unit in this park to power a bathroom and a fountain, and also to heat it so that it wouldn't be covered in snow in the winter. And everybody got very enthusiastic about it. There were videos out called Solar Freaking Roadways. One of the problems is that people want to do things environmentally sound. And really badly, when they hear something like this, they can see the good parts of it right away. Wow. Especially for so much of our population lives in densely packed cities, they don't see the tops of roofs being empty. They don't see that large stores have all this available space that could be covered with solar panels. They see the roads as the only available place to do anything. So in their mind, it clicks immediately. And then celebrities and all kinds of people were jumping on it, saying this is going to be fantastic, everything's going to be covered. And there was no advice from anybody that was a roadway engineer. There was no advice from anyone who makes solar panels or uses solar panels. And they got $4 million in funding. But what's really bad is when a project is failing, it'll be used as an example in the future that will make it difficult for other people to raise funding for projects that do have a chance of helping the world.
That's the most dangerous part about it. It's like it's that one solar company that Obama was funding, and there was a lot of controversy about that. So then the climate change deniers, motivated by the oil lobby, were like, "See, as though there's no corruption with fossil fuels. There's no corruption at all." Mm-hmm. And I think too, it stands to, having done some research about solar power over the years. To me, it's pretty simple. Get them on every roof. Let's just start there. Just put them on every roof that sits out in the sun, and there you go. Like the tops of parking garages should all be. Should all have solar on them, in my opinion, and especially in places in the Sun Belt, where in the 3 or 4 months, sometimes longer, of high heat, parking your car out in the sun is like brutal, because your car bakes and stuff can melt and whatever. And I've seen some places, even just on a regular parking lot, it's not a parking garage, they just build solar panels, so now you've got shade and you're generating electricity. It just seems simple to me versus the sidewalks and roadways thing.
Mm-hmm. The parking lot in the Walmart in Lancaster, California, did just that. They built awnings, and on top of the awnings is solar panels. It looks really sharp. It's environmentally friendly, and it's a nice place to go park your car while you go in and shop. When you come back out, it's out in the Mojave Desert. Yeah, Mojave. So it's a very hot place to park your car. And
that's a part of the country where it can get to 115 degrees in the summer. So literally, you can burn yourself on anything metal. If you leave something out in the sun on your dashboard, it'll melt. Like, that's not a joke.
Yeah.
So, and now you come out and your car's not on fire.
But let's think of it as we have a limited amount of money that we can draw on to do projects. So before we want to do a project, we can say, yes, this is a good idea. But before we do this, before we ask for money, we're going to see. Now, let's come up with multiple ideas and develop some criteria that we're going to use, that we're applying each dollar that we spend. So for the amount of money that Sand Point, Idaho spent to build this section of I wouldn't really call it a roadway because it hardly even functions as a sidewalk. For the amount of money that they built, it would basically fit underneath the pickup truck. They could have solar powered 99 houses. And the amount of heat that they need to melt the snow over a year is 1.3 megawatts. So just for that little section, they're producing a whole lot of heat pollution.
Right.
Last thing our planet needs is more heat pollution. So it was a very poorly thought out thing, and I thought I'd go over some of the reasons why, because it just sounds so good. So here is a piece of solar panel. This one's broken. You can't believe how easy it is to break, because if I put it on its side into the camera, you can see that it is about 0.05 of an inch thick, and it's glass, and it just wants you to break. If I were to blow on this right now, holding it on the side, I would break it.
Wow.
And as much as I tried to be careful, I broke one. So this is a monocrystalline solar panel. If it was good, it would generate a 0.5 volt at 4 amps.
Okay.
In the sunlight. Now the next thing is, it generates the amount of sunlight when it's flat. When I turn the angle, it's like turning down the amount of sunlight. And we're not at the equator. So as solar panels need to be tilted here, and the amount of tilt that would actually be necessary to make them functional at any kind of decent efficiency is almost 60 degrees. So imagine going down your road tilted like this and your car is slipping off the side. So again, back with the parking lot, maybe we could think of things. Majority of the country, space-wise, not people-wise, space-wise, majority of the area beside the roads is empty. You can build 100 miles of solar panels beside the road for what you can build a couple miles of solar roads. And that saves you enough money that you might be able to think of, okay, are there alternate technologies that we could use for telling when deer are coming or whatever? And in cities, an east-west road, I just like to have them covered so that the sun isn't blaring in your eyes when you're commuting in the morning or the evening. So that we use our solutions, and we spend $1, that we solve more than one problem with every dollar we spend, or we solve 5 or 6 problems. And if we think about it more, instead of going with the hype, and then once there's the hype, I've been on boards before where I'll say, no, the solar roads are a bad idea, and instantly everybody's attacking me. Because they're it's like I'm anti-solar. I'm not anti-solar. I wouldn't have packs of solar panel making supplies in my house if I was anti-solar power. So I'm extremely pro-solar, and there are more methods than just solar, just using photovoltaic. The photovoltaic is a wonderful way to make power when you don't have the ability to concentrate sun, or if it's going to be portable. And it's a nice, safe way. It's really hard to make an accident with the solar panels. The next thing comes in building a roadway. Roadway design engineers is a specialty. I wouldn't even think of trying to build a road. Now, I am currently 1/8 of a mile from a highway. when trucks go by, I can still feel them because we're at a hill, and you could feel the road rumble as the trucks are going down the hill braking. So the roadways have to be designed to dissipate energy, and it's difficult to dissipate this mechanical energy at anything greater than 45 degree. So for a 24-ton truck coming by, going down a hill that's only 10 degrees, that truck has to have about 10 inches of concrete with iron rebar in it, holding it together to keep it from shattering as this truck goes under it or goes over it. And that has to be on a bed of gravel and sand. And there's actually a specialty for people just to, hey, what do I need to do to get the roadway under it ready for the concrete? And so I won't pretend to be an expert on roadways, but it is almost a field it is a field on its own. And to replace it with a 4-inch or 6-inch glass panel module is not even taking into consideration the base that you would need to have underneath that, and the all the things like drainage. One of the problems we have, this road that I live by, designed over 100 years ago, has a bed of sand under it. Well, when there's a 4-inch rain, the water goes into it, and that sand bed that's under the road turns into an aquifer. And the water comes downhill, and it goes by and it washes all the sand out, and the road is hanging over nothing, and things fall through.
Oh. So what if that, I mean, so you pointed out, like, we need to be just obviously be efficient, and how would you do this from like a governmental standpoint? Would you feel like there needs to be some type of solar commission or something like that for people to discuss, like, we have this money, what's the best option, and go over all of the different ways?
Well, the first thing is what you're doing here, is allowing people to talk. We have to talk and get the idea into our heads that we don't always go with what sounds fantastic. Because, and the next thing is what I call problem mapping. You write down all your problems, and you write down what causes it and what results you get from it. And you can start adding together your problems with other problems and finding out that sometimes, just like in the cycle of life, some things die, feed others, that you can solve your problems by using other problems mapped with them. Well, California has multiple problems. Let's say if we just put a whole bunch of California problems, don't have enough water. When they do get water, it's catastrophic mud. When they don't have water, they get catastrophic fires.
Right.
Well, what if fire breaks were made around some of the hills to shield some of the hills and direct water away from the ground underneath them so that it gets gets released on a controlled method, so you don't have these mudslides. Generate power, and in the meantime, make sure that you have a system in place. They might even be able to distribute water. I don't know, as we get people to think, say, what if the hills of California had solar panels on them to help prevent fires and manage your water flow? And as you start putting problems together, you start saying, hey, yeah, well, maybe it'd be nice to have sections of California that don't have mudslides.
Right. Or whole cars are being washed down the road or whatever.
But the forum such as this, where we get to talk, allows you to say, there are answers out there if we think, if we talk.
Yeah, and I think, too, the thing, you got to have people from different backgrounds and experience and training and education, because that's where the best ideas come. You bring up something in this conversation like, wow, I hadn't considered that. Somebody watching this goes, well, actually, you could do this and this and this. And then all of a sudden, these amazing solutions are coming in. So we need the forum, and, obviously this is one of them, but on a bigger, maybe just start at a municipal level or a local level, is to have these kind of forums and discussions to where we can come up with the best plan and the best use. And as you say, come at it from a point of view of let's solve not one, but 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 problems, which then makes the entire project so much more efficient and so much more sustainable. And it'll then, all of these problem solving things I can only imagine the amount of money they would be saving, and in some cases even generating. So like here in the city of Santa Monica, they built several years ago, and they're building a new one. They call it a SMRF, a Santa Monica Urban Runoff Facility. So there's an issue here in LA County. These, when it rains, the drains all funnel in and then go into the ocean. So you can't surf or be in the water for 72 hours after it rains. So they created this thing 10 years ago, and they're building another one where they capture water runoff. It's hundreds of, it's like millions of gallons, if not more, if not hundreds of millions of gallons of water comes rushing through, because it's all collected in the drains, and then it funnels to the ocean. So if you start capturing that water, cleaning it, and putting it back into the water system, we're reclaiming and reusing and recycling more water. We're putting less toxic water into the oceans, which is bad for everybody. And any one of these storm drains, that's what they're building them on where the storm drains are. So it's amazing what they're doing. And that's a great example of what you're talking about, of solving several problems. It's helping our drought problem. It's helping our polluting the ocean problem. It's helping a number of things, which affects wild marine life and all this other stuff. So when you say these things, I think it's really helpful, because it spurs thinking, creative thinking that can come up with interesting solutions that benefit everybody. So we got a couple more minutes here. What else did you want to discuss or bring up with this?
Oh, that was pretty much all I had was, it just, the impact of a bad project can just have so many ripples. And when you go online, you can find many YouTube videos debunking it. But I still, even just a few weeks ago, heard a mention of people just enthusiastically supporting it, even though the test section has caught fire, it's frequently broken. On implementation, it started out with only 7 out of like 30 panels working, and it didn't deliver on almost all of its points. But yet, the fervor of the excitement is still getting other cities and places to sign on to it, like Baltimore. And it's like, well, we need to be able to talk about, are there issues with the problem, and frankly, that's where comedians come in, because they can bring up in front of a crowd mostly tactfully, topics that an engineer would get killed for. You can mention it as an observation, and people think when they're being told in a humorous way. Where if someone comes across speaking seriously, they take it very negatively and get defensive. Whereas a comedian delivers it, it gets accepted right away and taken seriously.
Right. It's like, wouldn't it just make sense? It's like taking a plant and putting it on a street or a sidewalk versus putting it in a window where there's direct sunlight. I think, too, you bring up an interesting point, and it's something that FDR did when he took over. He said, we're going to try a bunch of programs, and if some of them don't work, we'll bail on them. And I think people can't be so, like, it's okay to go, solar roadways didn't work. We tried it. It didn't work. Let's find a better solution. It's not like, oh, you failed, you wasted money, and solar panel doesn't work now. Or you're against solar if you're against solar roadways, and stop getting into these. I mean, that's such a problem in America. We've seen it in our politics, obviously, as everybody just digs in on one side and no one's willing to hear anything. And it's like, I'm a big proponent of solar power, provided it's used correctly, and you're not putting solar panels, under cars. That seems like maybe a problem. I don't know. Call me crazy. Not an engineer, but
they also wanted to put it under trees, in parks, and sidewalks going through trees and forests. And it presented all of these ways that you could use solar panels. That, when a house gets a new solar panel on it, they will go 6 feet away from the sewer pipe that comes out of so the sewer pipe doesn't cast a shadow. That's only like 4 inches in diameter, and they don't use that large portion of the roof just because of the negative effects of just that pipe. And so you look at somebody's solar house and say, why didn't they use that section? It's because for some reason they thought the shade would make it. Well, the shade of a little 4-inch pipe versus a truck. And I've been in Los Angeles traffic where everybody's bumper to bumper. I don't see how they could get any light down to the road.
There's no light down on the roof in a big city like Los Angeles where there's this bad traffic. So, well, that's interesting, Mitch. I appreciate you bringing this up, and it's a good thing. It's a good discussion to have, and I think people need to be open to. Let's come up not with, I want my plan to win or whatever. What is the best plan? And maybe my plan isn't the best one. And I'm okay with that. I just want the best plan that's the most efficient, that solves the most problems, and is the best use of the money, be it tax dollars or private money or whatever the source is coming from. So I think it's a good thing for people to discuss, and I appreciate you bringing this up. This is a great, as I talk, a lot about solar on this show, I'm glad you're bringing up this aspect of it that I hadn't considered. I hadn't really heard of solar roadways, but it doesn't make sense to me. Even before I read your article, just you're putting two words next to each other. It's just, it's just like ethical child pornographer. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I just,
Yes.
I don't get it. But, well, thanks for bringing it up. And anybody out there watching that, if you live in a city or an area where they're trying to push through solar roadways, go to a town hall meeting or talk to your local representatives and say, hey, I'm all for solar, but this isn't working, and here's some evidence of how it isn't working. Why don't we do these things that we already know work with solar? And that's a good way to get your voice heard. So, well, Mitch, thank you so much, and thank you so much for supporting this show. And folks, anyone out there watching, for $25, you can bring up amazing stuff like this for us to discuss. And all you got to do is go to the link that is below, patreon.com/Graham Elwood. So, Mitch, thanks again for being on the show, and we'll make Gotham solar powered again.